Well, creatives, community, and kind folks, welcome to RPG with DBJ, the station for the imagination where you make this place incredible. All right, so to get this started, for those who do not know, this show is simulcast on Twitch, YouTube, and the audio gets punched out to our own Discord server. Of course, you can participate in any and all of those platforms. Just take a look down below the video and link in and decide on how you want to participate. Lastly, because the show is simulcast on 3 platforms and you can choose to join the show on any and all of those platforms, just be aware that as more and more people discover the show, that maybe, just maybe, your comment might be the highlight of the show, but there are no guarantees. Just be better to be participate and be creative and fruitful rather than spam. We don't like spam around here. All right, so this week, and as we do every week, we pick a theme and we talk about it all week long. This is an extremely long form content show, and again, you guys make it that much more enjoyable. But this time, hey TNS, this week we are talking about noir, grimdark, and evil themes in our tabletop role-playing games. And this came up from a discussion that happened in a absolute favorite tabletop Facebook group that I'm part of, actually called Absolute Tabletop, and moderated by 4 excellent creators and more. And the subject came up because a number of great settings have been created by the people who are over there. One known as the Ravaged Wasteland of Cryfoth, another called Iskloth, and a third that's just been released. Known as Scavenger, and others, by the way, by the people at Absolute Tabletop. And one of the conversations we had was about basically noir, grimdark, and evil themes. And one subject that came up, of course, is problematic, especially in our day and age, is about torture and slavery and prejudice in our tabletop games. And I thought this would be an excellent opportunity for us to segue away from our cutting class series, where we take the Dungeons and Dragons classic classes and talk about them all week, and instead talk about this subject. And it being poignant because I thought it would be a great idea to bring this from the point of view of someone like myself who understands that there may be people who may or may not want to engage in some of these problematic themes, considering I'm a person of color. And so rather than anyone else out there having to say it, how about I just say it so that we can get to the point of it. So now, mind you, each day, just so that we just don't talk for 5 hours all week long, an hour a day, we do have specific themes: Monster Monday, Trope Tuesday, World Building Wednesday, Third Pillar of Exploration Thursday, and Future Friday. And we will try to we get a little squirrely here. We get distracted, but we'll try to keep it on point. So, yeah, Tired Knee Sleep says this kind of topic is going to be so beneficial. Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, honestly, if you miss it or you catch it or you miss something in it, I don't know, just refer back to it or tell somebody else to refer back to it if you really don't have the words for it. Okay. Off camera, and I posted this as a response to the conversation we had on Facebook in the Absolute Tabletop group. It boils down to one word. And off camera, we were having a discussion with this with some brilliant people who are part of this channel. And the word is catharsis. And I'm going to bring it up. It's going to be a drinking game, honestly, by the time we end this week. But let's start it out with the word catharsis, and we'll go into other things. But when it comes to, and I will even read a description of what at least Wikipedia says noir and grimdark means and things like that. But before we get there, the most important thing is catharsis. In other words, no matter how dark or brutal or violent or oppressive your world is, there needs to be some hope, some ray of light. There needs to be an opening for your players to have catharsis. Let me give you an example. And this is an example, the most modern example I can think of. And you know me, I always bring up television and movies. I'm going to talk about John Wick. Now, John Wick as a whole, 3 movies deep, we've got bodies stacked like cordwood. We've got double taps to the head and chest with bullets at point blank range. We've got broken bones and knives thrown multiple times in people's chests and the whole 9 yards. But there's an important thing we need to realize about the John Wick flick. I mean, we literally have the Continental, a hotel network that's for assassins who kill people on the regular, right? But there's a reason why the John Wick series is very popular. A very easy, simple reason for the John Wick series to be popular. And that is catharsis. Because the John Wick series started out, now I understand that it's more important and more detailed than this descriptor I'm about to give you, but not much more detailed. And the reason is we accept all the things that John Wick, hey Gaster, nursing a hangover, then why are you here? Oh, I get it. It's about to put you back to sleep. Anyway, the we accept all of the evil things that John Wick has done. As a matter of fact, we even forgive all the things that John Wick did in his past, as we're told that he is Baba Yaga, the boogeyman. We forgive all of those evil acts because he is doing this for the right reason. Why? They killed his puppy. Now, any son of a bitch that's going to body stamp a puppy deserves to die. And all their friends and associates that pretend to even defend this individual deserve to die in this dark world. Now, in polite society, no. In polite society, we feel that way. But John Wick is catharsis, catharsis embodied in a violent, demonic individual who brings death by tossing lead at people at hypersonic speeds, right? This is a person who's like, oh no, oh mofo, we're going to open up a can of whoop ass. We're not breaking out the 6-pack. We're getting the whole brick, and we're going to just drink it on down. And that is the reason why we love John Wick. It's not just, now mind you, the action is good, and Keanu Reeves is, actor is, okay, whatever. But there is catharsis in the idea that in a polite society, this person gets to do the thing that we normally can't get to do. And the reason we love that is because we ourselves put ourselves in that person's shoe, that imagine ourselves as the innocent. When we're the innocent individual at work, Red Dice Diary says he's reversed the tanker full of whoop ass up to the building. Hells yes. Like, drink it on down. We're going to have ourselves some fun. Click, let's get some popcorn and watch this mofo kick some ass, right? But the reason that we're happy about, if you took that out of the movie, John Wick is a grimdark noir feature, right? It's just an evil guy doing evil things against other evil people without much motivation. But the motivation, as small as it is important. Yeah, Gaster Who Stole says, yeah, John Wick is a movie that you watch when you're pissed. Oh, hell yeah. If you've been wronged in some kind of way, you imagine yourself like, okay, even if I can't get revenge, I wish somebody would open up a can on my boss or a relative or the person that cut me off in traffic, or put the last item on the shelf in the store in their cart before I could get to it, or whatever the case might be, said something online that spread around and now you've got to defend yourself. It's those kind of things. Tired EC says lots of beer references in this morning. Yeah, like Red Dice Diary says, open it up. What is that? Is that pure whoop? Is that fresh whoop? That whoop has a head on it, right? But in all seriousness, let's go back to what noir and grimdark even means in our tabletop gaming. And we listen, we love ourselves some noir. We love ourselves some grimdark, some evil themes in our role playing games. How many? There is a whole nation, I'll say, in our tabletop role playing community that desperately wants Dark Sun as a setting from WotC to be made, and that is a noir, grimdark, evil theme setting. Red Dice says, I think you're right. As the audience, we need an on ramp so that we can allow ourselves to see John Wick as the hero, no matter how flimsy the rationale might be. The death of the puppy gives us that. Now, mind you, there is a tenuous link because the puppy represents a new life for an individual, a new beginning. Also, John Wick, technically, John Wick is evil. John Wick is not the good guy. He is an assassin that kills people mercilessly, except we find out that he's the person that got out of it. It also means that in a noir and grimdark kind of world, as an example, John Wick represents somebody who doesn't want to do those things anymore and was given a chance not to do those things. It's like, no, I'm not really asking for absolution, but I'm tired of not being responsible for my actions. I'm tired of being in a grimdark world, and I want to just get out of it. I want to retire out of it, and at the minimum, I just want to be left alone because I don't enjoy the experience any longer. I can do the thing, but I'm not a sociopath or psychopath that enjoys the experience, and that's another difference as well. Gaster Two Soul says, in a way, to be psychological, with fiction characters, we reflect our ideals and personalities into said characters, and it makes us sense why John Wick is so popular. He kind of embodies our internal hate and anger, where other characters can embody other bits of personalities. Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. Sometimes, I mean, for example, for people who love good is good, bad is bad stories, where it's pretty much black and white, our world is very gray, and sometimes we subconsciously want to escape our own world of too many gray shades of gray into a world where, you know what, I wish I temporarily, I just wish I was transported to a world where good is just good, that good people do good things because they're good, and evil gets punished. Evil gets stomped in the ground and throat punched because that's what evil people need to be have done, and we're not questioning whether they're right and I'm wrong. You know what? Sorry. All right, Rickard. Yeah. Rickard says, I would, however, argue that John Wick is not noir. Okay. Before we go into it, let me hit this comment here, and then we'll go into the description of what it means. I'm going to argue with you, but I'm not planting my flag in the hill or anything. I'm not going to die on that thing. But I'll read it out in just a moment. Hey, kitty. All right. Red Dice says, it's that necessary spark of hope that maybe you can get out of the darkness. It definitely takes a lot less mental real estate when you have a simple bad good divide rather than shades of gray. Yeah, kitty. She before and after the show, I give her lots of head rubbies. Yeah, Rickard says noir. At least in American cinema, a lot of tropes come from circumventing a production code. Yeah. All right. So, according to Wikipedia, where of course all things are true, and no one ever modifies it, and everyone tells the truth. And this is a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to try to speed through it. In its modern form, noir has come to denote a marked darkness in theme and subject matter, generally featuring a disturbing mixture of sex and violence. While related to and frequently confused with hard-boiled detective fiction, due to the regular adaptation of hard-boiled detective stories in the film noir style, the two are not the same. Both regularly take place against a backdrop of systemic and institutional corruption. However, noir fiction, French for black, is centered on protagonists that are either victims, suspects, or perpetrators, often self-destructive. A typical protagonist of noir fiction is forced to deal with a corrupt legal, political, or other system through which the protagonist is either victimized and or has to victimize others, leading to a lose-lose situation. The traditional hard-boiled detective story and noir story are diametrically opposed with mutually exclusive philosophical premises. While the classic hard-boiled private detective, as exemplified by the creations of writers Mickey Spillane, etc., Raymond Chandler, and so forth, may bend or break the law. This is done by a protagonist with meaningful agency in pursuit of justice. And although not every one of their cases may have a happy ending, the hero nonetheless will emerge with a clean and ethical slate. Noir, on the other hand, whether films, novels, short stories, are existential, pessimistic tales about people, including, or especially, protagonists who are seriously flawed and morally questionable. The tone is generally bleak and nihilistic, with characters whose greed, lust, jealousy, and alienation lead them into a downward spiral as their plans and schemes inevitably go awry. The machinations of their relentless lust will cause them to lie, cheat, steal, and even kill as they become more and more entangled in a web from which they cannot possibly extricate themselves. So that was a long form of talking about noir. And the reason why there's a difference, like Rickard says, it's always lose-lose though. Or, well, I hate saying always, but yes, you are correct in the sense that part of a noir and grimdark setting. Yeah, Rickard says John Wick ends happily. Yeah, happily for us, because the bad guy gets it in the end. Mofo gets it in the end, and we're all happy about it. And he does leave with a little bit of hope. I think the difference, I think the main difference with a noir and especially with tabletop setting, is that part of the blame, and this is a strange thing to say for blame, using the word blame, but I'm going to use it until I find something else. Part of the blame in a noir setting and grimdark setting goes on the protagonist, right? So an example would be that, yes, the hero could survive and save their soul if they don't kill the main character at the end, much like, say, the movie Seven, but we sacrifice ourselves. We go down a dark path. We create our own failure by engaging in the thing that our emotions want us to do. So in some ways, the grimdark would be like, it's almost as if saying, we should release. Let's make it a tabletop gaming session, right? My PC should be against slavery in the setting, but my PC chooses to ignore the fact or allow slavery to continue, and then maybe that brings about some other failure in a noir setting, right? Those slaves get killed, or an important NPC, family member, friend, ally, close cohort ends up getting tortured to death, i.e., I lose because of my choice to ignore what happened. And maybe my ignoring it was because of some lust or theft or selfishness or something like that. So the noir, as opposed to, say, like the catharsis part of it, is that we are purposefully going down the dark path as well as the rest of the world, and it's our fault that that darkness continues because we have yet to puncture the darkness and get like a little pinpoint of light. That's how I see it. And there's lots of, where it is Monster Monday, there's lots of monsters that do those kind of things and do that to us. Rick, oh, there you go. Popped on over. All right. Gaster says, now I did make sort of a gritty, realistic grimdark campaign I made a while back called Dark Hollows, which is about the PCs getting their memories wiped and them having to track down their memories, all the while unraveling a deep conspiracy that might result in something called the genocide bomb. You know, a part of a mixture of a noir is that, similar to what Gaster just said about the PCs losing their memories and such, there are stories where we follow the protagonists at a point at which they are past their darkness and they're coming out of it. John Wick, we find out about John Wick after he has been a murderous assassin with no consciousness. We don't pick up on him killing and torturing innocent people or at least criminals who he probably didn't give much of a chance to, right? We pick up later on. Total Recall, we pick up Arnold Schwarzenegger or Colin Farrell, if depending on which Total Recall story you want to go with. We pick up the character at a point at which after their evil has been done, not at a point at which we see them doing the evil thing. The movie Joker is a perfect example of not quite of a noir, but it has a ton of catharsis, because we see a person making more and more choices, whether willingly or not, to go down a dark path, but we exult in it because we know that sometimes we get pushed to that point, and sometimes it only takes one bad day or a number of things to push you over the edge for you to exult in your life, whether it's good or not. And so, yeah. Yeah, Rickard says noir mostly follows all evil deeds will be punished, even those of the protagonists. And I think sometimes in our tabletop gaming community, we forget that part. Like, yeah, everyone's like, I want to play an evil campaign, which, let's be honest, most people want the reason they want to play evil campaign is because they want to do things and not feel the consequences of it. They want to be a psychopath or a sociopath, right? And in polite society, you can't do that. So in a role-playing game, they're like, yeah, I'm polite and nice all day long. I'm going to get rid of it, throw the shackles off, and just, murder kill people and do whatever I want and have fun at it without ramifications. And that's not noir, right? Because that's not necessarily even grimdark. It's because you are not leaving open the potential to suffer the ramifications of the things that you've done. Rickard says, yeah, it starts crap for John Wick, but ends better than it starts. You're absolutely, no, I absolutely agree with you. There is catharsis. And I think one of the issues in tabletop gaming is that there's a reason why we want to play. We need to be honest with ourselves and honest with the people around us and the setting. Do we want the happy ending? Right? Because if we want the happy ending, then those of us that have embraced the grim darkness. My character's evil. He's punishing. He likes to torture people. He's a murderous bastard, right? Hey, sure, but where's the light coming from? Right? Am I a gunslinger that was retired and doesn't want to kill people? I'm really good at it. Am I the retired gunslinger that's just like fed up and now I've got to get pulled back into it? Every time they keep pulling me out, I keep pulling back in. Is that it? Or am I Denzel Washington in the Equalizer, right? Who has a dead end job and eats, unburnt toast basically by himself in a cafe and folds napkins perfectly every single time and reads a book, the same book over and over again. I don't know, Catcher in a Rye or something. And then a young girl stumbles into my world and now, I'm going to take what little bit of my life savings and try to buy her out of some Russian mobsters who disrespect me. And I come to the door to get ready to leave. And I'm checking my watch like 18 seconds. These mofos are going to die. Ooh. Is that the person? And a lot of times we love the brutalistic part of it, right? John Wick capping people in the head, Wolverine taking his claws and carving people up. Batman breaking bones. We love that part of it. We really don't, as a community, look at the other side of that. Wolverine, who pretends to be a loner but always seems to be hanging around and takes care of children more often than a little bit, even though it would sound creepy, but it isn't. Batman, the same way. He's always a ward of someone. I've never heard of a grown man being a ward, but he likes to adopt kids and takes care of them. There is a trauma and pain in Batman. He doesn't want to be this way, but he is this way, and he's really good at it, i.e. Equalizer, right? Hey, I know how to kill people. Man on Fire, another Denzel Washington movie. You better be careful. The man knows how to play a symphony. He plays a symphony with life and death. And so a lot of the noir settings do end up being good at the end. Maybe not for the hero, the protagonist, sometimes for someone else or something else. The player character that sacrifices themselves, or at least attempts to sacrifice themselves to free the slaves. The noir detective that gets the young girl free from human trafficking, even though maybe couldn't save everybody, but at least saves one individual. Getting back into the chat, because I know you guys are popping in here. Rickard says, killing someone is still an evil act. So John going on a killing spree and taking the law in his own hands would in Noir constitute an evil act. Okay. I agree with that. Yeah, John Wick. Remember, John Wick, as well as everyone else in that world, technically, they're all evil. And they are in that grimdark world. I'll read the description of what they consider, what grimdark has been considered in just a moment, but I'm going to get back into the chat. Red Dice says, definition I found online was a genre of crime fiction or fiction characterized by cynicism, fatalism, and moral ambiguity. Yeah. Tired Knee Sleep says, life sucks enough at the moment that I don't know if I can do a fully evil no hope campaign. There are lots of people. Hey, Warhammer 40K, anybody? Red Dice Diaries goes on to say the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. And or I could even flip that and say it's the hero they need now. It's the one they don't need in the future, right? It's the Nolan Batman. Like, if Batman succeeds, will he retire, or is he so traumatized by his own pain that he will always see crime, no matter how much justice is brought to the world, how much crime is destroyed? Is he always going to be on this eternal? Like, will he migrate from a clean Gotham to another city of crime to continue delving deep into his own trauma? Probably. I'd say that. Rickard Johansson says, Man on Fire is far more noir than John Wick, as he pays for everything he does in the end. Not sure about the original version, but definitely in the Denzel's version. He sure does. He dies at the end, right? Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Man on Fire, although honestly, that's another flick where you're just like, mofo. Yeah. Where he's got the glove and the egg-shaped implement. He's like, this is my finger. This is in your ass. This is C4. You need to answer my questions. And you're just like, yes. Hell's yes. Red Dice Diary says they did a comic called Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader, and there's a line that says, your reward for being the Batman is that you get to be the Batman. Ooh, that's different too. There is also a grim darkness of, like, you're benefiting from the evils in the world in a way that if the evils were never there, you would have never been in your position. Much like it's much like a person who is rich and safe, let's say. The prototypical I'm the rich kid that lives in a mansion with a rich family, but come to find out that the parents engaged in illegal activities. Or, hey, I'm the son of a mob person with a lot of influence, but my relatives are all criminals, right? Well, them being criminals put you in a better position, but you also are the benefactor of said position. The idea of Batman having been created because of the crime in the city. Bruce Wayne would have never become Batman if it wasn't for all that crime, i.e. that's what made him the person who he is today, right? So it's kind of dark in that sense as well. Now, Rickard says, I would argue that the difference between noir and grimdark is if the theme is that the evils will bring you down, or if they are the normal state. Ooh, okay. So going back to Wikipedia, of all things true and none of it is fake. I'm being sarcastic, but grimdark is a subgenre of speculative fiction with a tone, style, or setting that is particularly dystopian, amoral, or violent. The term is inspired by the tagline of the tabletop strategy game Warhammer 40K. In grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Several attempts to define grimdark have been made. In fiction, where nobody's honorable and might is right, and as the standard way of referring to fantasies that turn their backs on the more uplifting visions of idealized medieval lania, and instead stress how nasty, brutish, short, and dark life becomes. Life was back then and really was. I misread that. But anyway, notes that Grimdark has little to do with reimagining an actual historic reality and more with conveying the sense that our own world is a cynical, disillusioned, ultra-violent place. It goes on to say, Grimdark, a shorthand for a subgenre of fantasy fiction that claims to trade on the psychology of those sword-toting heroes and the dark realism behind all those kingdom politics. There are two more descriptions. Grimdark fantasy has three key components: a grim and dark tone, a sense of realism. For example, monarchs are useless and heroes are flawed, and the agency of the protagonist. Whereas in high fantasy, everything is predestined and the tension revolves around how the heroes defeat the Dark Lord. Grimdark is fantasy Protestantism. Characters have to choose between good and evil and are just as lost as we are. Lastly, Grimdark defining characteristic to be a retreat into the valorization of darkness for darkness' sake, into a kind of nihilism that portrays right action as either impossible or futile. This, according to Liz Burke, has the effect of absolving the protagonist as well as the reader from moral responsibility. And it goes on to give tons of use in fiction, sometimes referred to as anti-Tolkien. Of course, the most successful and popular grimdark fantasy, A Song of Ice and Fire, is characterized by its reaction to Tolkien's idealism, even though it owes a lot to Tolkien's work. And there's too much. Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, blah blah. I mean, it goes on and on. I'd be here. I'd spend another hour just reading out the list. Let's get back into the chat here after talking about the grimdark. All right, so Vince says our lockdown started today. Ooh, yeah, I heard about that over across the pond. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Hey, and oh, by the way, Vince, thanks for popping in, man. You are always welcome. Always welcome. Rickard says, so in Noir, the evils you do will come back to haunt you one way or another. In Grimdark, there is no karma, and you could do all the evil acts you want and still go around your life without consequences. Okay. All right. Tired Knee Seep says, English Civil War. I killed my brother because he supported the king. My pa killed my mother because she was for Parliament. My sister killed me because I killed my bro. She was burnt at the stake. Grimdark in a nutshell. Yeah, and okay, so in circling back around to this being Monster Monday, we do have quite a number of monsters, especially because they've been translated from our own fiction, that are actually not even monsters, but just even NPCs and even player character options that revert back to it. For example, there is something that is not embraced, but is part of the game, is the idea of, say, the Warlock class, right? The person who makes a promise to an otherworldly being to ask for a thing, and then that thing asks for their soul in return. Now, of course, in the gaming community, Warlock is not exactly what the public would normally say. It's in the table. It's a difference between making a deal with the devil in the public field rather than in our tabletop gaming, because there's other types of Warlock patrons. But the other side of that is the idea that you could never get out of it, that your promise to serve an outer being automatically means that you're going to fail at some point. That's far more noir, right? That all the good that you're doing is going to be undone because of the act you're doing. Now, Grimdark, on the other hand, while you could make the case that there are no consequences for your evil acts, the world is still evil, so you can still be the victim of other people's evil acts. And I think that last part is is what some players don't understand about a grimdark setting. In other words, yes, you could kill someone in the street and suffer no consequences for it. In, let's say, no, Star Wars is a bad reference, but in Mos Eisley in Star Wars, and I'm not talking about the entire concept of Star Wars. I'm talking about just that place. It's a grimdark bar, right? Crime happens there. People look the other way. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? Well, I mean, Obi-Wan was never arrested for slicing the arm off of a hapless criminal who was an a-hole, right? But if you stay there long enough, you'll be a victim of another crime. People will rob you, lie to you, cheat and steal from you, and so I guess there's a fine line between the catharsis of doing evil and getting something good out of it, or the noir that you're gonna suffer the consequences of your own actions. Rather, in grimdark, you may not suffer the consequences of your own actions, but you still might be a victim of a dark, sinister world, despite the good and evil that you do as well. Yeah, a wretched place of noir-style villainy. Exactly. Yeah, Rickard says meta monsters for a noir game: greed, jealousy. There's plenty of them that have pulled from our own fantasy, like the hags, demons, devils, people that make deals, creatures that make deals. The classic drow, slavers, anything that enslaves you, anything. Sphinxes kind of fit into that genre in the sense of promise me to do a thing and I'll do something for you. The Invisible Stalker is a spell and creature that kind of it's the I want to see my victim dead, and I will do anything I can to get that person dead, and then you might regret making that decision, but the Invisible Stalker still wants to rend the victim from from limb, and you as an innocent individual, is like, "Ooh, I didn't mean to. I was angry at the moment," kind of thing. Satyrs, lots of fey creatures, grimdark and fey go hand in hand. The fey creature that's like, "Please don't kill me if you only do this thing for me," or "Come have a party." The seductress. Whether it's sexual seduction, money, greed and envy. I can make you rich. I can make you powerful. I can make you look beautiful. The illusions that go over you as you look beautiful to everyone, but you're dying on the inside from a disease or something, or corrupted, or I only ask for your firstborn. Right? It's those are the kind of monsters that are very noir in the sense of, hey, I think I'm going to do this thing and get away with it, consequence free, knowing in the back of my mind that I'm no different than anyone else, right? And that it's the best friend who's a criminal and says, "Listen, I'll be there to help you out, but if you call me, there's going to be death and destruction, and you call that best friend anyway, and they show up and they just start cracking their knuckles. You're like, okay, but you told me you wanted my help. That means we're going to start killing people, and yeah, and now you have to live with the consequences of such a thing." Mr. Spensar says, in grimdark settings, blood is the currency of the realm, not effort but suffering. And who does the suffering, right? PCs don't like to suffer, but unfortunately, according to the description of grimdark, they too might be the victims of such. Cyberpunk is very much like that as well. Vince says, I think I never played any grimdark campaign. I did some of them. Campaign diaries. One of them had a character finding a blessed weapon which he could not use because it would burn him, and he mind controlled a guy to kill a bunch of people with it, so the blessing would be destroyed and he could use it. Yeah, we know players love to circumvent the punishments they would normally receive from things, which is pretty grimdark in and of itself. Yeah. Red Dice says, yeah, satyrs, once they start playing those pipes, they got you. They sure do. Vince says, I love using enemies that make deals. The most interesting thing is making up deals the players are actually likely to take. Most PCs won't take the give me your soul for riches deal. No, they won't. But if you, there are other deals player characters will take, especially if he gives them some kind of like mechanical benefit. Yeah, yeah. Ricker says, never ever call Mouse. Sure, he might help you, but you might not want the help. Yeah, yeah. In a comedic sense, it's the long lost friend you always knew was a problem, but he's like, hey, I need a place to stay. Can I come over? And you're like, well, you can crash on the couch for a few days, and then they just never leave. And they get on the couch and they're like, and they of course they invite all these faceless people who come over to party and never cleans up after themselves and sleeps on the couch all the time and plays music too late and has all kinds of really bad habits. And it's that kind of thing. You're just like, why did I do the good thing? I should have never done the good thing. Um, Vince says, I had a devil making a deal with a paladin where he basically said, leave me alone and I will point you towards a bunch of demons, enemies of the devils, which will give you much more glory. Oh, hells yes. Hells yes. Evil playing good against us, not against itself, but like, yeah, we see that all the time in crime fiction, right? The detective is air quotes best friends with a criminal who gives them information on other criminals, right? And the detective, or how many times have police detectives in stories cornered someone who's running away? Why'd you run? What are your cops? What do you have in your pockets? MacGuffin, drugs, money, whatever. Oh, we don't care about the drugs. We're looking for bigger fish, right? Ignoring the evil deed to go after another evil deed, right? So there are, a paladin. Hell, there might be a paladin's, a paladin, a classic silver-plated paladins group that, unbeknownst to the player character, they are making deals with devils or in the Blood War, right? Like, yeah, we talk to devils all the time because they point us to those damn demons that are causing havoc. We'll deal with the devils later, but for right now, we'll take the advice. They've always been truthful about pointing us in the right direction, and we get more glory, maybe more glory than actually doing the good thing, right? Because the devils are still running around without their heads cut off. But yeah, that's a great way of describing, like, how does a good person allow evil to continue? Well, that's why. There's also the idea of, like, I think in tabletop games, too often the player characters are interested in enjoying the decadence. And more often than not, even in the Grimdark and or Noir settings, the characters may not enjoy what they're doing, but they have to do it because of reasons, right? Um, Bringing up, I haven't brought up Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire too often, but the excellence of the writing is that every character that does from the outside what we consider evil is because they've rationalized it because of the experiences that they've had. Whether the Hound is saying, like, look, I do evil because the world's an evil place and screw it, but then ends up finding out that, maybe I shouldn't be doing these things. Or the young boy that's like, that we, it's strange that Game of Thrones, we love to have a lot of kids get killed. But anyway, the young boy at the wall who saw his family killed by wildlings is like, I really don't care what you have to say. They killed my parents, so whatever. So a lot of times it's a historical reference, right? Hey, this thing happened to me, so I'm going to kill the slavers. And someone says, well, no, we got to make deals with the slavers. And you're like, you don't understand. I was a slaver, and hell no. Um, Rickard says doing a noir game might be a good way to give the murder hobos pause. Yeah, because there's other people out there murder hoboing. Oh man. Yeah, Rickard says a mouse, a character in Walter Mosley's noir hardboiled Easy Rawlins novel. Yeah, always the character that you I believe was it there's a movie, another Denzel movie called Devil in a Blue Dress, and I believe his friend was named Mouse, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, yep. Rickard says Devil in a Blue Dress is a good movie adaptation, also starring Denzel Washington and Don Cheadle as Mouse, who literally said, who when he Denzel comes back is like, "Why'd you kill him?" And Don Cheadle's Mouse goes, "Well, you're the one that left him with me. You knew I was going to kill him." Which is a pretty funny line in a very dark kind of sarcastic kind of way. Sardonic, maybe? I don't know if that's a proper definition of that. Yeah, Vince says Grimdark, the heaven and hell for murder hobos. Yep. Yeah, just because you think you're a badass doesn't mean there's other people out there that aren't. Also, since this is Monster Monday, there is this. I'm imagining that there is a when a character does a thing, the consequences of that thing could build to create even further. The characters are making a wake behind them, piloting that boat that we talked about last week. And although the world ahead of them looks clear, behind them, they are creating their own demise, right? So that innocent person that they murder hoboed in the tavern has a friend or family who's a powerful law enforcer, or the PCs murder hobo their way into the caves of chaos on the keep on the after leaving the keep on the borderlands, and they kill all the children and pregnant orc ladies, women in there, and then another group comes behind them to come home, and the horde of goblinoids gets there and sees all the people murdered and finds out that there's a bunch of PCs drinking there, having fun and going, haha, wasn't it funny how we killed all those orcs? The monster manual says they're chaotic evil, and I had so much fun. And they're just like, and then they start building this like an entourage, a faction to come against them because of what they've done. That is far more noir than just Grimdark, because their own consequences are going to come and bite them in the ass. And, it's the, hey, I've got 10,000 gold pieces. I'm going to spread the cash around, and people are coming there to steal it. It's the consequence of it. And the darker the consequence, maybe there are people trying to make deals with the PCs and come to find out that they are supporting, let's say, hey, we're spreading a bunch of cash around, and come to find out that they're supporting slavers, or they are supporting human trafficking, or the goodly king is torturing people that the PCs are pointing out into, and not realizing the PCs are like, we're the good guys. We're going to point out evil because I've got detect evil. And come to find out that, yeah, because their flesh is being flayed when you leave town, and the PCs are like, I didn't realize I was doing that. Yeah, Rickard says meta monsters. The players are their own worst enemy. Yeah. And how often has that happened in the I have no memory of what I've done stories? Like the serial killer that wakes up and realizes that that's not what they are, or the retired gunslinger or swordsman or what have you that doesn't want to murder kill anymore, but there's a lot of people out there who hate them and want to take them out. And so they've basically created their own enemy of themselves. Many times in those stories, the PC on their downslide ends up confronting someone who is just like them. It's the new gunslinger who's faster, slicker, more callous than they are. It's the sniper that's sneakier, more well hidden, and more well funded than the lone sniper that the PC is. It's Batman in Arkham Asylum, right? Some people say the existence of Batman helped propagate all the people that keep escaping Arkham Asylum, and with the terrible management of Arkham Asylum, considering that they can't seem to go to Lowe's and find an actual good, lock that actually works. Lowe's or Home Depot, it's a hardware store here in the States, as well as many other hardware stores. They can't seem to find a good lock on the gates. And so Batman is constantly shuffling people in it, but Gotham is so corrupt that they can't seem to fix the problem. And every time he dumps money into the situation, somebody steals the money. So he's kind of making it worse, so on and so forth. Oh man. Vince says, aren't other NPCs which are similar to the PCs the biggest monsters in Grimdark? I think I have to say I absolutely agree with you. I agree with you that it's the give me your character sheet, I'm going to scrub off the serial numbers and make that your enemy is a thing, right? Hey, I'm an assassin, but there's a greater assassin out there. I'm a noble knight who is slowly being corrupted, but there's a knight who has become the anti-paladin that's out there, or whatever versions you have, and they're out there in the wild. And the reason that they're out there is because of something maybe the PC has done, or maybe one of the PC relatives has done, or something. Or the goodly nation that seems all goody two shoes on the outside, but underneath that there's flesh being flayed in the pits and dungeons, and the PCs have been supporting that government this entire time, and then the PC has to make the decision: do I reveal to the public that this goody good Gondor has been flaying flesh of innocent people in the basements to achieve the goody goodness, or do I reveal it knowing that it's going to bring down the nation and bring chaos? Right? Do you do that? I once started a game out with like a bunch of goblinoids coming into town with a wagon full of dead bodies, mostly their women and children that were dead, and revealing it into the public forum of the council of elders of all the other player character races, basically, and them saying, "Yeah, your paladins, your knights killed our people. They're child murderers. They are committing infanticide, and you need to put a stop to it. Oh, no, by the way, we should be part of this council because." We should be, just because we're goblinoids doesn't mean we should be on the outs. And that began them being accepted into their own nation and being part of the nation and being inducted in regular society. And it made the knights who thought they were doing good become the evil ones. And then the PCs had to go hunt down the goodly knights that ran away and stuff. So it works similar to the tower in Dread. Yeah. Yep. So going further into the chat, says, here's an idea for Noir games. Karma meter kind of works like a second hit point pool, but on a campaign level. So what happens if your karma meter is low in game? It means maybe you're trying to make good choices, maybe? That would be a longer term version of the light side, dark side mechanism in Fantasy Flight games, where I'm the game master. I use the dark side to do something that I want the evil to do, and then I hand over a light side chit to the players, who then use that, and then when they use the light side, it flips over to the dark side to allow the game master, me, to bring evil down upon the heroes' heads. Sounds similar to that if you wanted to do something. Rickard says, so that sidekick the PCs have around turned out to be the brother of one of the NPCs the players killed a few sessions ago, and ends up killing one of the PCs as the karma meter for the PC goes to 0. Yep. Absolutely. What's the movie? The first Incredibles movie actually deals with this. What was the villain's name in The Incredibles? I know you guys know this, but he was a sidekick. And the hero, Mr. Incredible, is like, get away from me, kid, you bother me, and smacks him away. Not literally, but, it's like, kid, get out of the hero's business, and becomes the main hero. Syndrome, that's it, Syndrome. And Syndrome, the villain in the very first Incredibles movie, his origin story was being disrespected by the hero. that was like, hey, you don't have what it takes to be a hero. And he's like, okay, I'll show you what it takes. And Syndrome actually would be a Noir character who thinks that they're doing the right thing. I brought up the movie Seven. That's a oh, man, that's pretty bad. Vince says, I'm not sure where I read it, but there's an RPG where you can get extra points at character creation, but you get some Doom points. I'm not sure how they called it, which give you bad luck. Uh, I can't. I know there's a number of games out there that do that. There's one called Zas Urkalis, XASIRK something. Zas Urkalis, which has a Doom counter in it. All right, so I want to bring up something since we're getting to the end here, and Tired Needs Sleep kind of wanted me to reference this as well. I want to bring up something personal so that we'll end it on a kind of a somber note a little bit, but I'm going to bring up something, and this is one of the reasons why we have problematic things in our tabletop community and why catharsis is important and why it's a very simple rule. We play role-playing games to have fun. So, as a person of color, there is a game, and I'm going to bring up another game called Call of Cthulhu. And Call of Cthulhu really embraces the grim, dark, noir, evil theme kind of setting where there's an underbelly. The world it's the classic, like, it's always dark, it's always raining, there's always investigations in places where there's no lighting for some reason. You always have to light a torch or use a flashlight that doesn't half work and whatnot. There's always cobwebs. Okay, there's always libraries where you're blowing dust off the books. It's a thing. It's a trope, and that trope is absolutely positively embraced in Call of Cthulhu, along with other things too, being spies and Men in Black kind of things, but in a darker, grittier form of the same thing, Black Ops or whatnot. But part of Call of Cthulhu takes place during a period of time that's extremely problematic here in the States. Usually between, I'll go back to even say the 1800s, all the way to no sooner than the 1970s. Now, for those who don't know, if you are not a reasonably adapted person with etiquette and a straight white male, most everybody else of a certain ethnic group, of many ethnic groups, are considered property, second class, animals, criminals. During that time, let's say if you are Irish, Italian, African American, female, Jewish, um, anything other than identifying yourself strictly with being heterosexual, and you Asian, you could just go on and on, and just start ticking off, and you're just like, damn. That's in the United States. Did we just damn near hate just about everybody? Yes, at certain points, we are like a gang. You have to be beat. You have to get beat in, and then you try to bring another group in so that you're not at the bottom. You have another group at the bottom. Whether you come from a Latino or Hispanic or Latinx group or ethnicity or something, all those individuals you play are problematic in Cthulhu, especially during that period of time. But here's the thing. There have been game masters, or there are, I guess they're keepers or storytellers or whatever, out there that will use that as an excuse to make sure that, say, the young lady who wants to play Cthulhu, who plays a young lady detective, gets that they use that as an excuse to open up verbiage that makes the game untenable for that person. Basically, being sexist, racist, prejudice, blah blah blah, on and on and on. What they're not doing is they're not allowing catharsis. As I put in the Facebook page, slavery, racism, prejudice, bad, but Slavers getting throat punched, good. Racists getting their ass kicked, yes, good. You know, one-upping that individual who thought that they could that you were the servant class, or you were nothing but property or an animal, and getting to throw it back in their face, i.e., getting to punch them in the gonads or something, or getting to drag them behind the pickup truck because that's what they wanted to do to you. That's good. And that's what, in the tabletop community, I think, when someone's like, my setting is grimdark, my setting is noir, my setting has evil themes, and it's unrelenting, what they're not seeing is not allowing themselves the opportunity that we are playing a game. There is a meta to it, and that part of it is you need to let your players enjoy the experience. Yeah, you're maybe, yes, you do want to do a, I don't know, West Texas evil, KKK thing, and you're investigating something, and they're literally summoning Cthulhu with sacrificing people. You can't tell me that you're not going to let them beat ass. Your player characters beat ass for some reason or another. Or there isn't an NPC who's like, I don't like the way this person's talking to them. I'm gonna pull them aside and let the PCs know that, or the characters know this isn't cool. Or they meet a group of other people that are like, you know what, we want to beat ass too. We're going to help you out. Or at least, hell, let that character one up that individual, making that lack of teeth redneck look stupid when the African American detective comes down in the South to solve the problem that the locals refuse to or cannot solve on their own. Right? It's the one-upsmanship. It's the catharsis of the release. Vince says, it's weird that the country that used to be a refuge for outsiders became a place that hated outsiders with a passion. Oh, every group that has gotten here, that has made the United States a refuge, has then turned the tables on the others to not. What's the movie? Gangs of New York is a perfect example. I'm a born American. No, your people moved here just like everybody else. You stupid son of a bitch. Yeah, it's the old adage of go back where you came from, and I'm scratching my head like, you mean yourself? Because there's only one group of people, the indigenous people who lived here, who belong here. Everybody has to go back where they came from if you use that kind of verbiage. But it's arrogance and stupidity, right? Yeah. Tired New Sleep says, it's realism. Terrible excuse. Yeah. Because I'll listen, if I ever have to play in a game where, like, if I play a black dude in a 1930s Call of the Cthulhu game, and my game master starts throwing the N-word at me because he thinks it's, well, that's realism. I'm sitting there like, okay, because say it again, because there's realism for me reaching across the table too, right? But there's some people who think that way. They're less like, well, this is the realism of the world. If you play a female character, you're just going to be second class. Well, no, sure, but no, right? It's sure there may be people who think that way in this dark, evil. Yep, punch, your nose is broken. Realism. Yeah, it's hell's yes. Yeah, it's the yeah. You think you're having fun, but the point is that what's the term? You're having fun if you're doing it right. I mean, you're doing it right if you're having fun, and that means that the people at the table should have fun. So definitely session 0. Red Dice says, entirely coincidentally, myself and my wife recorded a podcast we released this morning that touches on this. Oh, cool. Sweet. We run in line. So absolutely. By the way, Red Dice, well, maybe not right now because we're about to get out of here, but tomorrow put in the links to the Purple Worm podcast, please, when you get the chance. Yeah, Vince says, as soon as you can create the other, you will do so. Sadly. Yeah, we'll get into more of this during the week. Yeah, we barely touched upon the Monster Monday, but But anyway, guys, thank you very much. Salutations, everyone out there. Thank you very much for being part of the show. You will see slightly different changes, but hopefully they will be for the good. Everybody, everybody, have a great one. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye. We are.